Hello, everyone. For this course, part of what you'll be learning is how to read and write from a file. So I have a couple of methods here for reading and writing to a JSON file. So I'll comment them out. Let's just delete everything and start afresh. So you have a feel of how to read and write from. So the aim here is to enable you to be able to write to a file. So I have a file.json here, and you can see that I have two contents. I'm a content and I'm a second content inside of an array inside of this JSON file. So this you is what you'll be able to achieve at the end of this video, and then you'll be able to also read the content of this file onto a console here. So let's see how this is achieved, and then I'll also delete this file to see how you can achieve this. Now, I have created a folder called demo, and inside of that folder, I have file system demo, which is where I want to do some of the demo coding for the file system module. I have created a node project, which basically is a project from scratch, and you can see my package.json here. It's file system demo, and all of the basic things that we covered from the previous video on starting a new project from scratch. So in this demo folder, just I just created the file system demo.js file to be able to use for this demo. So let's see how we use the file system module. So I basically say const fs, which is file system, equals fs equals require fs. So this is a variable, so I can name it anything, but I decided to call it fs because it's shorter, and the actual name of the package is also fs. So I'll save this, and now let's see what we want to achieve. We want to be able to write to a file, read from a file, right, and also append to an existing file. Now let's see how to write to a file. We use a method called fs.writeFile in Node, and fs.writeFile works in such a way that if the file does not exist, it creates it. So the first parameter it takes is the name of the path of the file, the full path. So if we want to create the file in the same folder that we are working with, we just mention the name that we want to give it, file.json. If we wanted it to be in another folder, then we have to include the name of the folder here as well. So, but in this case, we just want file.json to be the name. Now, to be the name within this folder. Now, the data to pass into that file, I can just have a string here and say I am a content, and it takes a third parameter, which is a callback for error in case there's an error. So we open up an arrow function there. A callback is basically a function that you have as part of an argument. So I can open up an arrow function here and say if there's error, throw that error. So if there's an error, basically just want to see what the error is, and I save this. Now let's see how we run this. So I come back to my terminal and say node file system demo.js. You should watch closely. I'm already in the demo folder inside of my terminal. So if I run file system demo.js, it should work fine. Now you see on this side, so I pressed enter. Now you see on this side, I have file.json created for me. So if I open up file.json, you see I am a content, which is already created there from the code. Now, one thing about write file is that it overwrites content. So if this file already existed, like we have now, if I change the content here, it will overwrite whatever is inside of here. And important to note, you'd see that my VS Code is showing me red on this file, meaning this is not a proper JSON file. So let's make it a proper JSON file. One way to do that is to make it, let's make it an array content. So I say JSON, just stringify, I want to stringify this content, and it should be an array. Now, if I save this and then we run this command, node file system demo.js, and I press enter, you'd see that the red has cleared up, meaning that this content has been overwritten with a new thing, which is an array. I am a content. So that's pretty much how you write to a file in Node using FS. So let's say reading from a file. If you want to read the contents of the file, FS also has a utility method called read file. Right? So there's read file. If you notice, there's read file and there's read file sync. This one is synchronous. The read file sync is synchronous, while read file is basically asynchronous. I remember when we talked about asynchronous program, we said Node was asynchronous by default. So this module works asynchronously, meaning it can run independently of something else. If this is confusing, you should probably look at the asynchronous course once again to get a good feel of what this means. So let's use the read file, and read file takes a first parameter, which is the full path of the file. In this case, we are in the same folder, so we can just mention the file directly and say file.json. And it takes another parameter called an encoding format. This is what helps it to know what type of, how to read this file. So let's just use UTF-8, which is an encoding format that works well for strings. A third callback, it takes a third callback, which basically be a third argument, which is a callback, and that callback can take an error parameter and also the actual content that we are reading from this file. So if I open up this arrow function, and then open this up, so we also want to check if there's error. Through the error, you should know that this read file method is what populates the content of these two items in the callback. So it also helps us populate what the content is. So in this case, we just want to do console.log whatever the content is, and then save. So let me quickly comment this out so that we can, so this doesn't run when we run the code. So I say node file system demo.js and press enter, and then we see in the code, in the console immediately, I am a content printed on the console. So the content of this file has been read and printed on console when we did console.log. So printed it here, I am a content. Now let's see how to append to a file. Now if I say fs.append file, this is the method that helps us to append to a file, that is to basically add to an existing file. And similar with write file, it also takes the file path. In this case, we just want to mention the file name because we're in the same directory. It also takes the data, the actual data that you want to add to it. So I say, in my case, I just want to JSON stringify another array saying I am a second content. Now it takes a third parameter, which is a callback for error, and then you just open up the arrow function there, say if there's an error, throw the error, and then save. So I'll comment this out so we don't have to keep saying this in console. So we want to, if we open this file, we want to see that second item added to this file. So if I run this code again, node file system, and I press enter. So if we come back here, boom, it is added to it. So second content is added to file system file.json. Now you notice that for this, there are two arrays. If your intention is to make just one array and then have this second content appended to this first array, how you do it is one way of doing it is using the fs.read file and write file in combination. So let's see how that can be done. So if I comment this out, so let's say I wanted to append to that same array that's inside that file. What I'll do is say fs.read file, right? fs.read file will give me the content. So let me say file.json, and then the encoding is UTF-8, and then we can say callback for error and another one for the actual content. Right, so we open up the arrow function, similar to just as we've done up here when we're reading file. Now in this case, we also want to check if error through error, but we are not printing the content to console. What we want to do is put it in a variable, let data equal to the content. So we want to do a JSON.parse the content because it was stringified when we were pushing it inside of the file. We stringified it. So JSON.parse the content. Right now, what we want to do is say data.push. What we want to add is a second content inside of that same array. All right, now that we've pushed this, we can now use fs.write file to overwrite the content of that file and say fs.write file, file.json, and then the data, which is basically what we've created here. So we just say JSON. We have to use JSON.stringify to stringify it once more, the data, and then the callback for error, as we normally do. 0 if error through error, and then save. Now all we did is to read the file, get the content, parse the content to convert it to a proper array back, and then push this item inside of that same array, and then overwrite whatever is in the file with this array. So I have to come back here to remove this second content so it doesn't skew up what we expect to have. So I save. So we're expecting that second content to now be as part of this first array. So let me run this again. Say node file system demo.js, and then I press enter. Now we come back to this file. You see that second content has now been added as part of this array. So I hope that was clear and concise. So for subsequent videos, you'd see how FS actually helps us to create a server and work with files. So I hope you enjoy this, and I hope you practice this on your own. If you have issues, you can reach out to Idris on Slack, and I'll be available to answer your questions. So a quick recap of what we've done. We've shown you how to write to a file using fs.write file, shown you how to read from a file using fs.read file, and shown you how to append to a file using fs.append file. Then I showed you a nice little workaround for when you want to append to the same content within a file. And that will be it for this course. Bye-bye.